You've been controlled your entire life, not by force, by suggestion. Now, it's time to take your mind back. Everything you do is influenced by what you don't notice. You walk into a room and feel the urge to conform. You say yes to things you don't want because silence feels heavier than truth. You follow trends, you mimic behaviors. You nod to be polite. Even when your soul screams no, but behind that politeness is a prison. Mind held hostage by invisible forces, not chains triggers. And here's the truth. You weren't taught until. You see how you're being shaped? You cannot reshape the world around you. The one who leads the mind leads the motion. And right now, someone else is programming your reactions, your fear, your wants, your hunger. But awareness ends that game. You are not meant to be passive. You are not meant to be pushed by noise. You are meant to lead from within, to become so aware that even manipulation fears your stillness. That begins now. You were born into noise, opinions, labels, expectations, before you could even define yourself. They handed you a script. Here's who you are. Here's how to act. Here's what to want. And without knowing it, you followed it. You chased approval. You feared rejection. You shrank your voice to make others comfortable. But all the while, your mind was being trained, not to lead but to obey, not to question, but to conform. This is how influence works. Not through force, but repetition. They repeat a lie until you call it identity. They reward your silence until it becomes your language. And then you wonder why life feels off. Why you're surrounded by people, but still feel alone. It's because your soul is screaming for leadership, your own. But leadership doesn't begin outside. It begins in the war between your old self and your awakened mind. The one who sees the string sand cuts them. Your mind is your battlefield, and every day you leave it undefended. You let someone else decide what you believe. Every scroll, every ad, every headline a tiny suggestion wrapped in emotion. They don't want your attention, they want your allegiance. But here's the secret, they hope you never learn. Emotion is the back door to your logic. If they can make you feel it, they don't have to prove it. And that's how control works. Not by truth, by volume, not by proof, by pressure. But you weren't made to be reactive. You were made to respond, to slow down when they speed up, to analyze when they want you to obey, to question the why before accepting the what. This is how power is built, not with muscle, but with mastery. The world bows to the one who doesn't flinch, not because they're numb, but because they've trained their mind to kneel to no one. You keep wondering why nothing changes, why you try harder, speak louder, push more and still feel stuck. But power is not in the effort, it's in the alignment. Because no matter how loud your actions scream, if your mind whispers doubt, the world listens to the whisper. You've trained your body to hustle, but you've neglected the source that drives it toward thoughts. And thoughts are not random. They are built brick by brick, by what you allow, what you read, what you listen to, what you repeat. This is the system of influence they don't want you to master, because if you train your thoughts, you become unshakable. And when you are unshakable, you become dangerous not to others, but to the systems that feed on your confusion. A mind in chaos obeys anything that promises comfort, but a mind in command creates change evident in silence. That's the war you're in. Not against people, against patterns. And the one who breaks the okay lets the game. You were not created to react. You were created to discern. And yet, look around, everyone is offended, triggered, manipulated by headlines they don't think they repeat. They don't feel, they react. That is not freedom. That is programming. And you were never meant to be programmed. You were meant to be present. To step back from the noise and ask, who benefits if I believe this? Who profits if I panic? Wins if I stay silent. This is where power begins, not in volume, but in vision. Not in reacting to the world, but in revealing it. You don't rise by shouting louder. You rise by knowing deeper. Because once you see the strings, you don't dance anymore. You move with purpose. You speak with restraint. You act with strategy. And in a world desperate for attention, the one who controls their impulse becomes the leader everyone secretly fears. Not because they dominate, but because they cannot be moved. Control doesn't come from volume. It comes from presence. You've seen people who speak without saying much, yet the whole room shifts. You've felt the pull of someone who didn't demand attention, but owned it. That's not charisma. That's internal alignment. That's the power of someone whose mind is no. It's longer ruled by the need to be seen. And that's your next step. Kill the need to prove. Kill the hunger for validation. Kill the addiction to noise. When you stop needing the room starts needing you. Because you radiate something rare, certainty, not loud. Forced certainty, but silent, anchored knowing. You don't have to perform when your thoughts are aligned. You don't have to persuade when your energy speaks louder. That's what they don't teach. That true influence begins in solitude. It's forged in private battles, in the refusal to obey every emotional impulse, in the quiet hours when no one is watching, and you still choose discipline. Most people build walls to protect their minds, but you must build gates, because leadership isn't about closing yourself off. It's about deciding what gets in. Your thoughts are your kingdom, and what you allow to enter will either build or burn your authority. You can't consume chaos and expect peace. You can't feed on distraction and expect focus. Guarding your mind is not weakness. It is warfare. Every scroll that makes you feel behind, every image that tells you who you should be, every voice that whispers you're not enough, these are not random. They are weapons. And until you recognize the battle, you will lose it. Not all at once, but slowly, in small agreements, silent compromises, invisible surrender. But no more. From this moment forward, you choose what enters. You filter, you pause, you examine. Because you are no longer a follower of trends, you are the builder of truth, and truth needs no defense, only discipline. They will try to provoke you, to pull you into their chaos, to make you react, because reaction is control. But stillness is power. When your mind is quiet, you hear things others miss. You see angles they overlook. You become untouchable, not because you escape the fire, but because you master it. And here's the truth. Influence doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. Because when you lead your emotions, you lead your future. And when you lead your mind, the world doesn't push you, you move it. But mastery is not a moment. It's a daily war. You will be tempted to react. You will be triggered. You will be misunderstood. But that's the test. The one who leads the mind leads the moment. And the one who leads the moment truths, the future. You are not here to repeat history. You are here to reshape it. And that begins inside. Before it ever echoes outside. This world doesn't need more noise. It needs more clarity. It doesn't need more leaders who chase power. It needs minds forged in silence. You were not born to compete. You were born to align, to walk into chaos without absorbing it, to speak less, but with more weight, to build systems while others fight for positions. That kind of power doesn't come from a platform. It comes from process, and most will avoid the process because it requires death, not of your body, of your pride, your ego, your impulsive self. The version of you that reacts to pressure instead of commanding it, that bends to opinion instead of anchoring in truth. But if you're still listening now, you are not most people. You've tasted the difference. You've felt the pull toward something higher. And now is the moment you choose. To no longer be a servant to emotion, to no longer be a slave to programming, to no longer wait for permission. You don't need permission to lead your mind. And once you lead your mind, you will never need permission again. This is the death of the follower in you. This is the birth of the architect. You don't react to the world. You rewire it. You don't echo trends, you build truths. You don't chase influence. You radiate clarity. Because now you know. Influence is not force. It is alignment. It is the silent power of a disciplined mind. It is the refusal to be moved by panic, tempted by applause, or defined by fear. From this day forward, you lead not by controlling others, but by mastering the one within. And when you do, the world will notice. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence commands what your words do not. And in a world of chaos, stillness becomes leadership. Discipline becomes light. Truth becomes fire. And you become the voice they didn't know they were waiting for.